I've gathered 8 of the biggest mistakes when starting a fantasy novel after having read and written stories for more than 2 decades now. In this video, I'll share all of these mistakes with you to make sure that the beginning of your next story becomes the best it can be. So sit back, relax, and let's tackle this one step at a time. The first and one of the most crucial mistakes is neglecting the hook. You've probably heard about the importance of a good first impression, right? Well, in the world of fantasy novels, that is your hook. It's that first sentence, paragraph, or scene that grabs your reader by the collar and says, hey, you're in for an adventure. Think about some of the most iconic fantasy novels you've read. What drew you in initially? Was it a mysterious line of dialogue, an intriguing character, or a bizarre event? That's your hook. Now, neglecting the hook is like inviting someone into a wondrous world, but only leaving the door half open. The reader peeks in, but isn't quite compelled to step through. As a writer, you want to fling that door wide open. Your opening doesn't have to be an epic battle or a grand spectacle. It can be subtle, but it must be powerful in its own way. Imagine starting your story with a mundane or overly familiar scenario. Readers might think, I've seen this before, and lose interest. But if you start with something unique, maybe it's the way your character views the world or a peculiar problem they're facing, you create intrigue. Remember, your hook doesn't need to reveal everything. In fact, it's better if it doesn't. It should tantalize, hint at the wonders and mysteries of your world, leaving the reader craving more. It's like the smell of a good meal wafting from the kitchen. You want your readers to follow that scent, eager to discover what's cooking. So, as you sit down to write the opening lines of your fantasy novel, ask yourself, does this make me curious? Am I offering a unique perspective or an unexpected event right off the bat? Your goal is to craft that irresistible lure that pulls readers into your world, making them eager to turn the page. Don't rush this process. Sometimes the perfect hook takes time to formulate, but it's worth every second. It's the beacon that guides readers into the heart of your story, and once they're hooked, they are yours to lead on this fantastic journey. Moving on to our second mistake, and it's a big one: overloading with exposition. In the excitement of crafting a new fantasy world, it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to share every detail about your creation with your readers right from the start. But here's the thing, dumping too much information or exposition at the beginning can overwhelm and even bore your audience. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine walking into a party and someone starts telling you their entire life story, their family tree, and the intricate politics of the workplace within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. It's too much too soon, right? The same principle applies to your fantasy novel. Your world is undoubtedly rich and complex, but your readers don't need to know every detail about the political system, the magic rules, or the history of every kingdom in the first chapter. The key is to weave exposition naturally into your narrative. Let's say your story is set in a world where magic is as common as technology is in ours. Instead of explaining this in a lengthy paragraph, why not show a character using magic in a way that feels as habitual as checking a phone? This way, you're revealing details about your world without hitting pause on your story to do so. To master this, think of your story as an iceberg. What's visible above the water is just a small part of the whole picture. Your readers should see only what's necessary to keep the story flowing at the start. The rest, the bulk of your world's history, culture, and rules, lies beneath the surface to be revealed gradually. A good strategy is to introduce your world through the eyes of your characters. As they navigate through their daily lives, encountering problems, engaging in conflicts, and interacting with others, your world will start to unfold organically. This approach not only avoids the pitfall of excessive exposition, but it also keeps your story dynamic and your readers engaged. So when you sit down to write, remember, you're not just an author, you're a guide. Your job isn't to reveal every secret path and hidden corner of your world all at once. It's to lead your readers on a journey, revealing wonders and mysteries bit by bit, keeping them curious and hungry for more. This way you avoid overwhelming them with information and draw them deeper into the magic and allure of your fantasy world. Let's dive into a third mistake: superficial characters and protagonists. This one hits right at the heart of your story's beginning. It's about how you introduce and portray your characters, especially your protagonist, in those crucial first pages. When your story opens, your characters are the first real connections your readers have with your fantasy world. But if these characters, particularly your protagonists, come across as superficial or cliched, readers may lose interest before they've even had the chance to appreciate your world's wonders. Think about the moment when we first meet a character in some of the best fantasy novels. There's something intriguing about them, a hint of depth that makes you want to know more. It could be a peculiar habit, an unusual situation they are in, or a compelling piece of dialogue that hints at a larger story. The mistake that many writers make is introducing their characters in a generic or predictable way. A protagonist waking up and going about a typical day might not cut it unless their typical is our extraordinary. Or a warrior who's just strong and brave but lacks any other defining traits or personal struggles might feel too one-dimensional. Remember, that doesn't mean to reveal their entire backstory or innermost thoughts in the first chapter. It's about giving a glimpse of their complexity. Maybe it's a warrior who's pausing to touch a locket before a battle, hinting at a lost love. Or a wizard who seems powerful but hesitates at a crucial moment, suggesting a hidden vulnerability. Your protagonist in particular needs to stand out. They don't have to be likable or heroic in the conventional sense, but they must be interesting. Maybe they're morally grey, unusually young or old for the role, or have a perspective or skill that's rare in your world. From the get-go, your readers should sense that there's more to them than meets the eye. So as you pen those first pages, ask yourself, are my characters just fulfilling typical roles, or is there something about them that's intriguing and layered? Even a small detail can spark curiosity and make your readers eager to turn the page. Remember, your characters are the gateway to your world, so make sure they are compelling enough to draw readers in and make them stay. Now, if you found anything useful in the video so far, please consider giving it a like to help me grow this channel. Thank you. Time to move on to our fourth critical mistake, unbalanced pacing. This is all about the rhythm of your story, especially in those first few pages. Pacing is like the heartbeat of your novel. If it's erratic or monotonous, it can disengage your readers right from the start. Think about pacing as you would about pacing in a room. If you're rushing back and forth, it's chaotic and exhausting. But if you're moving too slowly, it's lethargic and dull. Your story needs to find that perfect pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Just right to keep your readers hooked and moving along with your narrative. One common mistake is starting with a bang. A massive battle, a high-stakes chase, or a dramatic confrontation. While this can be exciting, if you throw your readers into the deep end without giving them time to connect with the characters or understand the world, they might feel disoriented. This doesn't mean you should never do it. The novel I'm currently writing does start more intense as well. It is important to understand the implications though and ensure that you're not losing the reader early on. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, some fantasy novels start with excessive world building or character introspection, delaying any real action or plot development. It's like a long, meandering path that, while scenic, doesn't seem to lead anywhere exciting. Your readers might start wondering, when is something going to happen? The key to balanced pacing is to intertwine character development, world building, and plot progression. Let's say your protagonist is on a journey to a forbidden city. Instead of spending pages describing every tree and hill on their journey, weave in elements of character growth, hints of the world's magic, and snippets of the larger plot. Maybe they encounter a mysterious traveler, or they have to use a bit of magic to get past a barrier, revealing aspects of your world and character naturally. Remember, every scene and every chapter should push your story forward in some way. Ask yourself, is this scene adding something vital? Is it developing my characters, expanding my world, or moving the plot along? If it's not, it might be slowing down your pacing unnecessarily. So as you craft those opening pages, aim for a rhythm that feels natural and engaging. Keep your readers on their toes, but also give them space to breathe and take in your world. It's a delicate balance, but when you get it right, your story will flow smoothly, keeping your readers turning pages, eager to see what comes next. Let's delve into our fifth mistake, poorly constructed dialogue. When dialogue is off, whether it's stilted, too expository, or doesn't fit the character, it can jolt the reader out of the story. First, let's talk about exposition in dialogue, which is a slippery slope. You might be tempted to use your characters' conversations to dump information about your world. But when characters start to speak like they're reading from an encyclopedia, it feels forced and unnatural. Imagine a character saying something like, "As you know, the great war of elves and men happened 300 years ago." It's unlikely people speak like this in a real conversation. Natural dialogue reflects how people actually talk. Think about conversations you have in your everyday life. They are often indirect, peppered with emotions, and can be ambiguous. Your character's dialogue should have a similar feel. It should sound real and be true to each character's personality and background. A street-smart thief would speak differently from a scholarly mage, for example. Then there's the issue of using dialogue to show and not just tell. Good dialogue can subtly reveal aspects of your characters and your world. For example, two characters arguing about the best way to cross a magical barrier can reveal the rules of magic in your world, as well as their personalities and relationship dynamics, without needing an outright explanation. Dialogue is also a fantastic way to inject conflict and tension in the early pages. It doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic either. Even a conversation laced with subtle sarcasm or hidden meanings can create intrigue and keep your readers engaged. A good practice is to read your dialogue out loud. Does it sound like something someone would actually say? Does it flow naturally? Is it too on the nose, or does it leave something to the imagination? Remember, dialogue is not just about the words spoken. It's about what's unsaid, the emotions conveyed, and the undercurrents that run beneath the words. So as you craft those crucial opening pages, pay close attention to your dialogue and make it count. Use it to breathe life into your characters and your world, making them feel real and tangible. Well-crafted dialogue can be the spark that truly ignites the interest of your readers in the journey ahead. Now, an important part of great dialogue is the use of subtext. For more about this topic, check out the video at the top. Let's tackle our sixth mistake next: misusing language or jargon. In the realm of fantasy, the language you choose can either open up or barricade the gates of your world, especially in those early pages. Fantasy worlds often come with their own set of terms, languages, and jargon. While these elements can add depth and authenticity to your world, misusing them can confuse or alienate your readers. Imagine stepping into a new world where within the first few pages you're bombarded with unfamiliar terms, names of people and places, or a new language without any context. It's disorienting, right? Your readers might feel like they've walked into a conversation where everyone else knows what's going on except them. The key is to introduce your unique terms and languages gradually and in a way that doesn't jar the reader out of the story. Let's say a world has its own language or set of terms. Instead of throwing it all at once at the reader, consider introducing it through the context of the story. For example, if there's a unique magical term, have a character experience or interact with it in a way that explains naturally what it is. This way, you're not just giving your readers a term, you're also showing them what it means in the context of your world. Another common pitfall is overusing archaic or fantasy-sounding language. Yes, you want to evoke a certain feeling with your writing, but if every other word is the, though, or whence, it can become a bit much. It's again all about striking a balance. Your language should enhance the story and world, not distract from it. When crafting dialogue, be mindful of how your characters would realistically speak. If your story is set in a world vastly different from our own, it's unlikely they would use modern slang or phrases. However, the dialogue should still be accessible and relatable to your readers. It's a delicate dance of making your characters and their speech feel authentic to their world while still being understandable to your audience. So as you write those first crucial pages, remember that less can often be more when it comes to language and jargon. Use them to add flavor to your world, not as a barrier. Let your readers get comfortable in your world first. Once they're in and intrigued, they will be much more receptive to the linguistic nuances of your fantasy realm. Let's explore our seventh mistake, which is a combination of failing to establish an engaging tone, atmosphere, and a consistent point of view. Tone is the voice of your narrative. Is it dark and mysterious? Lighthearted and adventurous? The tone sets the emotional backdrop against which your story unfolds. Imagine opening a book that starts with a whimsical fairy tale tone and then abruptly shifts to a dark and brooding tone. It's jarring, right? Consistency in tone helps your readers immerse themselves in your world, setting up expectations for the journey ahead. Now, let's also talk about atmosphere. This is the sensory experience of your world. In the opening pages, your description of the environment, the weather, the sounds and smells all contribute to a vivid, tangible world. A common mistake is to neglect those details, leaving your reader feeling unanchored in your world. Of course, you can also overdo it, which then bogs down the entire narrative. So again, as with so many other things, it's all about finding the right balance. Finally, we have the point of view. The point of view that you choose, be it first person, third person, or even second person, not only determines how the story is told, but also how closely your readers can connect with your characters. A consistent point of view is crucial, especially in the beginning. Switching point of views too frequently or without clear transitions can confuse readers and disrupt the flow of the narrative. Choose a point of view that best suits your story and stick with it, at least for the initial chapter. Let your readers settle into your narrative style before introducing complexity like multiple point of views. So as you write the first pages of your fantasy novel, ask yourself, does the tone match the story I want to tell? Does the atmosphere draw the reader into my world? And is my choice of point of view consistent and the best fit for my narrative? These elements, when aligned, work together to create an immersive and engaging reading experience that will keep your readers hooked from the very start. And now we arrive at our 8th and final mistake: neglecting early, smaller scale conflicts and mysteries. In the first few pages of your fantasy novel, it's essential to plant seeds of curiosity and intrigue. While your main conflict might take time to develop, introducing smaller conflicts or mysteries early on can keep your readers engaged and invested. Think of these early conflicts or mysteries as appetizers before the main course. They give your readers a taste of what's to come and encourage them to keep reading. It is okay if they are even somehow tied to the main plot, but regardless of that, they should spark curiosity on their own early on. A common mistake is to focus solely on setting up the world or the characters without any hint of conflict or a question to be answered. This can result in a start that feels static and uneventful. There should be something early on that is intriguing enough to raise questions in your readers' minds. Maybe your protagonist finds an ancient cryptic map in the first chapter with no idea what it leads to. Or perhaps there's a rumor about the ghost of a long deceased king who's haunting the royal palace. These elements instantly raise questions. What does the map lead to? Is the ghost real? And if so, why does it haunt the royal palace? Such early conflicts or mysteries also provide an opportunity to showcase your characters' reactions and decisions, offering a deeper insight into their personalities. How a character responds to a mysterious event can tell your readers a lot about them, often more than a straightforward description. So as you craft the opening pages of your fantasy novel, think about how you can weave in these small but intriguing elements. They don't need to be grand or dramatic, but they should be compelling enough to make your readers think, I need to know more. This way you keep the momentum going right from the start, setting the stage for the larger conflicts and adventures to come. But for now, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Have a great day, and see you in the next one.